I'm ready to know what I need to know to move to where I need to be right now.
Well, we're ready to tell you what you need to know. So what is it that you want to know? In other words, we could spend the rest of this week just feeling through your list, but you only get one question, so cough it up.
What's holding me back?
The feeling that you're being held back. The beating of the drum. In other words, when that's the first question that comes to you, it's a good one. We're really glad that you've spit that one out. Because feel the essence of that. So my life has caused me to want all of these things, but why can't I get there? What's holding me back? What's holding me back? So that attention to not being over there is what's holding you back. That's the most active thing in your vibration. People say, I want to be over there. And we say, what's over there? And they say, I don't know. I only know what's over here. We say, well, what do you think's over there? And they say, well, take me over there and I'll tell you. We say, can't take you over there. You're over here. You can gradually go over there, but you got to get happy over here. You've got to become optimistic. You've got to become expectant. You've got to become anticipating. So what is it that you are anticipating? What is it that you desire? Let us hear you.
To feel free.
Well, you see, there it is again. I want to feel free, but what did her words feel like? I don't feel free. It's all right. It's all right where you are. I don't feel free and I'm being held back. That's the vibrational essence of where you are, isn't it? I don't feel free and something's holding me back. So, and the discomfort about that is because there's so much that you want, and the feeling of not being able to get to where you want to be, it's suffocating, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's not a difficult journey. There are so many things that you can do. But the essence of what your trip is about is just first trying to lighten up about where you are. So we want you to give us, if you can, some positive aspects about being where you are. In other words, where are you?
I'm in a position of starting all over. My life is starting all over right now.
Well, that sounds a lot like the other things we've been hearing from you. It's all right, because where you are is where you are, isn't it? In other words, for us to badger you as if you should be someplace other than where you are,
I'm already doing that.
Is what so many of you are doing to yourselves. And so what we want to say to you, and we don't want to beat this analogy to death. Well, yes, we do. We really like it. When you are starting out on any journey, are you mad at yourself on the first step? Oh, damn, I'm still at the airport. My plane isn't even here yet. It's not even going to take off for another hour, and then it's going to fly to Houston, which is the opposite direction of where I really want to go. And then I'm going to have to get off and change planes, and then that plane, and then not even going to get to San Diego until dark. Or are you easier about those journeys? Do you accept the journey as part of the process?
I have not, and I want to do more of that.
So, that was a good analogy, didn't you think? So, on this journey where you're flying and you are impatient because you really don't really like the airplane part of it. You're doing the airplane part of it because you're wanting to be someplace else. But since you are going to be on the airplane, does it make sense to you that you might want to make the best of that? In other words, would you have a better trip on the airplane if you try to be cheerful about it and you feel appreciation about it and you think about how fast the flight really is and you look at the beautiful aircraft and you see the beautiful person that is greeting you and you realize that that person's going to bring you something to drink in a little bit, and that your chair does recline, and that the oxygen level in the aircraft is sufficient to keep you alive, even though you're very high. In other words, there are so many things that you could appreciate, and you could fixate on a child or on another person. You could make that time on the airplane pleasant, or you can make it miserable, even though it's a part of the journey that you're really You didn't get on the airplane because you just like being on airplanes. You got on the airplane because it's going to take you to someplace you really want to be. So in exactly the same way, we want you to realize that in every moment you are in some phase of the journey, that you have the option of making it as pleasant as you can or making it as miserable as you can. And we know that the other day we watched Jerry and Esther. They had a sort of interesting experience, because in the new book that is just on the bookshelves now, there is a new process that Esther is finding very satisfying, because it's a process about closing this gap. And so the contrasting situation occurs, and you know that it has occurred because you're feeling negative emotion. In other words, something's happened and you're feeling negative emotion. And the negative emotion is not too hard to define. And in the midst of all of that, a new desire is being born. And as that new desire is being born, you feel even worse, because now the gap between where you are and where you want to be has widened just a little bit. And now your dominant effort must be toward closing that gap. And so by applying a series of positive statements, wouldn't it be nice if, or what can I find about this that I like, or is there anything about this that makes me feel a little better? Trying to fork in the direction of what feels better rather than forking in the direction of what feels worse. And so Esther has made for herself a little computer program, and every time in the last week, that she's felt a little or a lot of negative emotion about something, she has gone right to her computer and described the situation and described the emotion, and then she sits and she just writes until she feels better. And it is remarkable how quickly she can feel better. And it is also remarkable how often in the middle of that writing another page springs up. In other words, I thought, Esther said, that what I was really angry about was that while I was working on a recording process, that Jerry was out on the outside of the monster bus rearranging everything in the bottom portion of the coach, which is box after box after box after box after box after box of things. Just when I think I know where everything is, I can hear him out there banging around and moving things around. And I'm not going to be able to find anything because I can never remember where Jerry put something. So Esther is working on the recording, and Jerry can't remember where he puts things either. So Esther is working on the recording and getting increasingly agitated about it, and not doing any writing about it because she has other things to do. And then she went to print something, and the printer cartridge ran out. No problem. I'll go get my new printer cartridge. Easy to anticipate the end of this story. Now, Jerry had said to Esther, I saw some big cartridges in the second bin back, in a box under the window washing brush. I think it said 12A. And Esther said, no, the cartridge I'm looking for is 97A. So she discounted Jerry's excellent guidance and went right to the box where she knew where her cartridge was, and it wasn't there. Or in the one next to it, or 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 the one next to it. She took every box off this big long conveyor tray she pushes a button and a big tray comes out of the monster bus, and here are all of these beautiful black boxes. They all look exactly the same. So Esther opened every box, getting madder and madder and madder. And then she realized that it isn't about not being able to find something. It's about feeling that my life is out of control. In other words, it went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper as she wrote. In other words, it wasn't just about not being able to find. It wasn't about somebody making an effort to put things where he knew where they were. It wasn't about what it seemed like it was about. As she began to write, it was about working in a confined space. It was about trying to get too much done in a short period of time. It was about not being able to, it was about not taking the time to put things where I want them to be. It wasn't even about, Jerry found it so interesting because Esther was all upset when he had made more effort than he ever made in his whole life to organize things, and she is more upset than she's ever been before. And why would that be? Because he had activated wanting to be organized, and Esther was over here. In other words, his living something that Esther was wanting to live exacerbated her not living it. And so the emotion erupted within her. You see what we're getting at? Life experience is giving you constant representation of what your vibrational essence is. And so once Esther got a chance to write about it, the next day she is laughing heartily about it because she can't even imagine why that was upsetting to her. And what we want you to understand is that it's okay that things are upsetting to you, because when something is upsetting to you, that means that there's vibrational discord that you want to know is there. In other words, how else are you going to soothe that and get into vibrational alignment if it isn't for these little insignificant things that come up that give you a chance to close the gap? So one insignificant thing after another, you close the gap, you close the gap, you close the gap about this, you close the gap about that, you close the gap about that, you close the gap about that, and before you know it, you've closed the gap. And now you're standing in this stable, good-feeling place where no one else can upset your apple cart, where nothing that is happening out there is upsetting to you, because the only thing that was ever upsetting to you to begin with is that you had split energy going on, you see. So we don't even want to talk too much to you or to Esther or to anybody about why the energy split. It's irrelevant. That's like Magellan saying, where have you been? It just doesn't matter. The question is, what can I do now to begin to close the gap between where I am and where I want to be? So, what is it that you want, that your current contrasting experience is letting you know that you want that you don't have? In other words, what is it that makes you want to sit here and plot a better course to it? Where is it you want to go?
I want to know that I can trust that what I want to do is the right direction for me and not doubt it.
Well, you have to start with easy things to gain that trust, because when you start with the things that really, really matter, you're not in a place where you can feel enough emotional difference. In other words, the difference between despair and anger is a very big vibrational difference. But if you're not used to paying attention to the way you feel, and you're not really aware of the relief that you feel as you make that move, you might get sort of lost in the vibration of it at first. It's better if you pick something that you don't feel so desperate about. When you're at a place where you're starting over. Now, are you really starting all over?
No, it just feels that way in some areas.
It's a really good response, because we were really ready to get after you otherwise. But what we had planned was so good, we're going to give it to you anyway.
Okay.
One day, a man was talking to us about losing his financial fortune. He had amassed quite a bit, and it went away all at once. It was a stock market thing, and he was feeling devastated. And we explained to him that while that money seemed to have temporarily evaporated, that who he had become through all of his life experience was still a very strong vibrational pattern. And that even though manifestations are not quite where you want them to be, you are actually at your furthest, most evolved state of being, because every one of those experiences, miserable as some of them were, caused you to become something that, if you will listen for it, will serve you. And so we can give this to you without any hesitation at all in a very short period of time. We're talking about a few weeks. You're going to look back and wonder how you ever felt that bad, because and further, you're going to feel appreciation of the things that happened that put you in this new place of calling, you see. So you'll hear much more as we're moving forward.